Welcome in the ring. A very good evening to each and every one of you. Now, tonight I got some of my favorite people here. Somebody line has got a little static in it, but we're gonna take that. I'd rather have a little static in the line and have Ganesh Paul, Member of Parliament, and Treaty Finance, Member of Parliament, with us than not have them. So, folks, welcome to our broadcast this evening. How are you guys doing?
Good evening to you and your viewers. I am doing well, and I trust Juretta is also, and you also.
I'm great. I'm doing absolutely great. Thanks for having us on the program tonight, Sharon.
Excellent. I am well too, Ganesh. Now, Ganesh, I don't want to assume that everybody knows us. I never like to assume that everybody knows us, and so introductions are not needed. Now, you are a second term member of parliament and you are the APNU chief whip. You're going to tell us the ministries you are shadowing, and Jurita is fresh off of the campaign trail. Election seems so far away, and then it was so close altogether as our prime ministerial candidate has returned to the National Assembly as a second term, a member of parliament as well, and shadowing some very, very important ministries. Let us start ladies first. Let us be gentlemen like. Rachel.
Well, guys, first of all, I want to say that it's absolutely great to be back at the level of the National Assembly to represent the people of Guyana. We take the representation there very, very serious, and we look forward to the next 5 years to serving the people, working hand in hand with you as you come into your communities, listen to your issues, and all of that. Well, this 5 year, I have two new portfolios that I'm going to be looking at. My responsibilities now is the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs and the Ministry of Tourism also. So those two brand new portfolios, and I look forward to going into National Assembly and representing at all levels. I can say this, Sharon, just going out during the campaign with yourself and other colleagues into the hinterland, seeing the issues firsthand as being faced by our Indigenous brothers and sisters. I am very passionate about representation, to making sure that their lives are better at the ending of this 5 years. It is serious business, and I look forward to making that representation at the level of Parliament.
Yeah, and to be sure, Ganesh was the one who sent us to a couple of those places, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. Ganesh was the one behind the scenes making a lot of the arrangements.
Yeah.
Well, I had my time in the sun, and it was good sitting at the desk making all the arrangements. I heard Sherrod saying that this is my second term in Parliament. If you're counting the times I spent in the public gallery observing, and this may be my fourth term, because I always, since back in 2011, enjoyed going in the public gallery, sitting down, observing, and paying attention to what's happening. And I was privileged enough to be extracted to be an MP in 2020. And here I am returning again as an MP for the APNU, a privilege that I hold dear to me. It's an honor, and I'm humbled to serve the people of this great land. I have two portfolios also, the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance. So I will be Gail's shadow this time around. And also I'm returning with Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development.
Yeah, and that's an area that you ably covered the last time, and you had the misfortune or good fortune, depending on to shadow Dharmlal and Parag, in one term. That must have been something.
You missed an entire minister, Sherrod, between those two.
Anand Pasal.
Oh, yeah. Anand. Who could forget Anand? Who could forget Anand? Ganesh, as we have the attention of the public on the program this evening, again, I don't want to assume that people know. We've started off this legislative term very, very strong. Tell us in brief some of the things, and Judy can chime in too. Some of the issues that we're pursuing in our parliamentary agenda, our work program, our legislative agenda, some of the things that we're tackling very, very early in this 13th Parliament.
Well, first of all, as returning members of Parliament, we have somewhat of an advantage in that we understand the Parliament better. We have 5 years under our belt, sitting in the seat, and we understand the nuances that comes with the portfolio. So the first day, which was the 3rd of November 2025, when we were sworn in, we made several submissions to the National Assembly. It's in the public domain of a series of questions coming from you, coming from Juretta, myself, and all other MPs under the APNU, which I think was necessary for us to make those submissions given all that was happening across the country. And we also tabled a bill and motions in order to have the agenda set in such a way where we don't look at ourselves as just simply 12 MPs heading into the National Assembly, but we were elected by the people to serve their interests. And what we are doing is seeking the answers to those questions asked, and we are also tabling motions to make meaningful contribution to the debate so that the decisions that come out can benefit their lives. I can tell you off the top of my head, the motion that I submitted reference to seeking to change the way in which a driver on the public road can get a revenue from GRA. You know, it's only 1 year. And I sat down and said to myself, why is it that I have to go to GRA every year to renew a piece of paper and pay a sum of money when I can do it in a 5-year period at most? And that is why a motion I have tabled is to seek to amend the existing laws to allow a driver to buy their revenue or their road license, as they commonly know it as, for a period as not more than 5 years. You know, and it brings ease to them. These are simple matters. These are bread and butter issues that affect the population. So if you now, Sherrod, as a driver, or Juretta as a driver, you get the opportunity to go to GRA once every 5 years, it's better for you. So you don't have to consume your time to go and line up in these long queues and wait long periods of time before you get the service. Time management, it's all about providing you with better opportunities, easier access, and faster service. And that is what we in the APNU will be focusing on. All our motions, all our questions, all our bills and what's not that we will be submitting to the National Assembly will seek to bring one way or another an ease on the population.
Yeah. Julia, you want to jump in?
No, I think it's absolutely excellent. I support it 100%, and I have to say that we do see some push in that direction when it comes to things like extending the time for your passport and so forth. It is absolutely necessary for us to move in that direction. We cannot move forward as a country if we have things lagging behind. You know, as Ganesh was speaking there, something completely off of that topic came to my mind, because of a similar system in which persons feel frustrated is a banking system in Guyana, and the fact that you have to go there and join long lines for some simple tasks. You have online banking, but then if you have an issue with your online banking, you have to physically go into the bank to rectify your online banking. So there are so many things that needs to be rectified, and for us to move quickly. And I dare say also, Ganesh, to move from this paper-based system also to a more digital system as we progress.
Yeah, and I think, Sherrod, if I may add, with your permission, the most recent motion we submitted actually came under your hands, which is for government to lay before the National Assembly this Tiger Bay redevelopment plan, so that the National Assembly can be briefed on terms of what really are they going to do. Is it just that they're looking for PR mileage, or do they genuinely intend to transform the lives of the people who are there? Do they genuinely intend to uplift the people's lives, as opposed to just going in and cook a pot of cook-up and feed the people and take pictures prior riding on a motorcycle? And is it just that, or do you have a genuine plan that you sat and you crafted so that the end result will not just be you and your PR stunts, but you will also see genuine upliftment, genuine improvement, and a genuine care for the people who live in that area? And the multiplying effect it will have on other communities. Where is the plan? We don't want to have a haphazard and ad hoc approach to national development, to use local government and regional development for an ad hoc approach. But we would like to see that there is a clearly documented plan where the monies, the resources of government will be utilized optimally for the benefit of the people and not in a wasteful way by just sporadic operations happening here, there, and anywhere for just a small, optics moment. I've always said that the People's Progressive Party is known for optic politics, and you don't get the follow through to really and truly ensure that the population benefits from these big investments.
Yeah, and that's the challenge we have with this government, as you've articulated, Ganesh and Jurita. The planning. Take Heroes Highway, for instance. That road was commissioned, and then after it started falling apart, and we know the whole story about the concussion road and all that. Suddenly, the vice president said, "Oh, we still got to asphalt it,
Yes,
pave it." I mean, it's like madness, And we know the story of the opening of the Demara Harbor Bridge and everything. Every day is an accident. Ganesh, I saw you pointing that out. We know the story of the two power ships, and still for the most part of today there was blackout, at least at my end, and lots of other Guyanese I saw on social media bemoaning that fact. And we know, for instance, like the sugar industry, they claim that they're desires of the sugar industry, and to date they cannot produce a pound of sugar at profitability. We know these things, and so it's not that any of us, I think that's how the preamble starts, and even the official statement on Tiger Bay, that we want, housing with dignity for all of our people as much as we want it for ourselves. We must house our people with dignity, a roof over every head. And ours is the party that has articulated that every young person must have a piece of land free. We have enough land to give everybody free. So it's not, but it's not about not wanting upliftment for a place as iconic as Tiger Bay with its own peculiarities, but it's the plan. And one would hazard any government worth its salt would have been rolling out that plan. You go in, you clean drains, you cook the cook up, and you take your photos, and still the people don't know, are we going, we coming, we can be moved, we can stay here, what is happening, we can be given houses temporarily to come back, are we going to still be paying the same rent? And we understand this government because we've seen, for instance, Ganesh and Jurita, we have seen Mocha, we have seen Cane View, when they said that the people were in the part of the road, and then what we have now. But I want us to talk about, we'll have an opportunity.
Before you go to what you want us to talk about, Sharon, another important topic that we have submitted several questions on that came under your hands also is about our migration policy and the migrants that we have in our country and undocumented migrants, cross-region movements, cross-border movements, and so on, hiring of these migrants and facilitating them in general. I should make the point very clear that we in the APNU, we are not against migrants in our country. We are not against migrants coming seeking a better life. What we want is a structure in place where there is a registration, where there's accountability for the people who are in the country, who are domiciled here, who are engaged in activities, so that we can know what they're about and monitoring and all of these things that are essential. I unfortunately had to be at the Georgetown Public Hospital for several days because I had a family member there. And there are several Spanish-speaking people who are working there. I'm not against that. They may have Guyanese background, their parents may be Guyanese, but these are things that we don't know. And we see our Venezuelan counterparts, we see them walking all over the place and so on, enjoying Guyana. Guyana is a beautiful country. But we were asking 4 years back, and we continue to find ourselves in the same place after the unfortunate bombing, where there is no structure, there is no accountability, there's no registration, there is no way that we can pinpoint that we have, 800,000 migrants in this country from Trinidad, from Haiti, from Venezuela, from Colombia. We don't know those things. The information has never been forthcoming. And the questions that you have submitted, I think, are very good questions. And I trust that the Minister of Home Affairs, the new Minister of Home Affairs, Oneja Waldron, will take it upon herself to provide the answers so that the population can know, and we will be able to streamline safety and security at a different level for our country, because we are on a different path given our oil resource.
Yeah.
I want to add, Sherrod, because Sherrod, when you have me and Ganesh on the same program, you're going to get yourself in trouble with the time.
That's what I wanted, y'all. trouble.
The three of us have rich history.
We do. I wanted to add, when it comes to having migrants in the country, we would remember, and the public should remember, that it was the last Minister of Labour, the former Minister of Labour, Hamilton, that was widely condemned for his comments when it comes to the employment of those persons, and not having much interest in whether or not they had documentations and so forth. His only interest is that we treat them good, whether or not they have documentation or they do not. So we're coming from a history of poor management of that system, and that is what we are looking to act upon right now. But Sherrod, before I hand back over to you, I must say that I want to just give a brief comment also on the Tiger Bay issue, because we see a lot of the press, the PVP press right about now with Tiger Bay. And let us not just beat around the bush. The PVP is in Tiger Bay right now, and all of that PR is because they are heading towards the local government elections, and they are looking to try to win Georgetown. And so they're going to go in and they're going to try everything in their power to try to get a little bit of mileage ahead there. I want to say to persons, that we're smart people. And anybody that wants to deal with issues, and the issue with Tiger Bay is not unique to Tiger Bay. Poverty in Guyana, it's a real issue. We've been talking about it for so many years. There's so many persons that are living below the poverty line in this country. We have the poverty rate there just under 50% in Guyana. It is really serious, and any government that is seriously looking to remedy those situations will put a holistic approach to dealing with it, and not just isolating at some issues here and there just because they want to push press on it. We have serious issues. Indigenous communities have serious issues. You go to Barbies, they have serious issues, all poverty related. So when the government wants to go in there and cook a pot of food and believe that that is the start of a solution, it's far from the truth. What they need to do is bring strong legislation at the level of the National Assembly, and for us to move forward collectively to alleviate poverty in this country altogether. So that you don't have to go in for persons to believe that, oh, you're coming as their savior. The government has a responsibility to its people. When you look at all international charters, we sign on to so many of those things that said we're working as a country to eliminate poverty altogether. And then you see Tiger Bay and their haphazard efforts that they're putting in right now. It has to be done more holistically, and we have got to call them out as it is right now. It is not good and nice and kind to go and just exposing persons because they're living a life that they did not wish on themselves, because they were left without resources, because they were pushed to the back of the lines when others, probably with less qualifications, were given advantage over them. We have these serious issues in the country, and unless we have a structural change at the level of the National Assembly that is dealing with poverty in a holistic manner, we're not going anywhere as a country. So, Sherrod, back over to you.
And you know what? Look, I've said to folks, coming in easy this second term. I'm coming easy. I might pick up speed later on, but I'm coming easy. Irfan Ali, the president, should be ashamed that State House is where State House is, and Tiger Bay is still the same 6 years into their new iteration of government, 6 years into a $1 trillion economy, and Tiger Bay is much the same. And this belated effort, and you always see this just before an election, all of these grand promises and so on, and that's the perfect spot for the segue into our topic this evening of the European Union, their observer mission. Their final report was laid quite recently. The Partnership for National Unity in PNCR. We met with the folks. Drita, I think you were part of the delegation that met with them. We have been on the forefront of some of these issues as a stakeholder in this country. And so we were happy, in a sense, to see the EU agreeing with us almost on every issue. Almost on every issue. Now, if you look at this whole thing here now, it's an indictment on the PPP. It's an indictment on the PPP. So I welcome some opening statements as we shift gears to this report, and then I want to put some specific questions. I want to pick out some of what was said in this report and get your reactions to it.
So let me go by first saying to you that the European Union's presence in Guyana was a welcoming one. It was one that we embraced. We had meetings with them, several meetings with the EU mission, and all the other observer missions that were here in Guyana observing elections 2025. We did express our dissatisfaction with the timings of their presence. We believe that they should be here for longer periods so that they can have a better and clearer understanding of our electoral process. Election is not a one-day activity. It's not an event. It's a process that begins from the very first day of the new term of a government, because what happens in the National Assembly, laws that are passed and the likes, especially if they are election-related laws, they will have an effect on election day. You have, of course, the registration of new voters. You have the current cycle that exists where you have claims and objections. We want them to observe how that happens. We don't want them to just hear it. We want them to see it. And we have always said from the APNU side that their presence in Guyana is needed for a longer period. So I want to let the public know that we welcomed them this year for 2025. And I want to say also that we welcome their report. And we don't expect their report to just be words on paper that is well printed, neatly packaged, and then you push it on a bookshelf and leave it. It is expected that these reports are studied, these reports are taken into consideration in the context of the country that they wrote on, and you move to implement to strengthen the system so that you can have a stronger electoral process where you can move in the direction of feeling comfortable that there is free and fair elections in Guyana. Unfortunately, we don't have free and fair elections in Guyana. That was pointed out, and we welcome the findings, we welcome the recommendations, and it is now our duty as lawmakers, our duty as leaders, as stakeholders, to ensure that we move into the direction of now implementing what is recommended to us.
Julia?
Yeah, so I have to agree with what Ganesh started off by saying. We completely welcome this report from the EU, and I must say, Shara, it serves as both a validation to what we have been calling the out for a number of years. And it also serves as a stepping stone as we move forward into this next 5 years. Because one of the things that we have to appreciate is the fact that this report is coming right now in November of 2025. There is no delay. It is coming with very strong recommendations for us to act on it now. So no one should be able to say, well, oh, we didn't know then, and it is too late before we get closer to the next election and all of those things. Very, very strong priority recommendations coming from the EU. I know that these are things that we have been speaking about over 5 years. Persons have been asking about it, and I want to highlight the part when it comes to implement the Data Protection Act. That one in particular, I know, Sherrod, you spent a lot of time dealing with the public and bringing to light a lot of the misuse of personal data that the government partake in during the 2025 elections. Persons went out there to get their cash grants, and then persons are using that information from the PPP to call you up to ask you who you're voting for and those things. All of those things being flagged in this report. Very, very insightful. I want to say it was a very comprehensive report. We thank the EU for bringing this. I do note also when it comes to having a clean voters list, that is also there listed as a priority recommendation. We've been asking for that. And this is not just an opposition party saying that there is a flaw here. This is a European Union observation mission saying that this needs to be done as a matter of urgency. It is being stated as a priority recommendation for us to move forward with these things. When it comes to the use of state media, huge one. We had come to the public before, stating very clearly that state media was not covering us as an opposition party. We spoke about it over and over. The government just pretended that it is business as usual, and they went on. Now we have the EU again stating that and putting it as a priority recommendation in their report. Very, very strong language used in that report, none of which the government can just dust aside and treat as petty. So we thank the EU for this report.
You know, I was telling some folks that, and they were hard pressed to believe that if you, in this democracy that we talk about here, if you're a member of the opposition, you can easily get a work in the government, if at all. You can even in the private sector, in this democracy that we talk about. So we got a long, long way to go. But I want to make a foray into some of what the chief of mission, the chief of the observer mission said in terms of some of these concerns, and get your reactions on the other side. So it's a brief clip.
The 2025 general and regional elections in Guyana were peaceful and well run. Election day and the tabulation processes were managed efficiently, and voters were generally able to cast their ballots freely. Yet, the elections took place in a context of deep political polarization and lingering mistrust from the 2020 process, combined with high expectations linked to growing oil revenues.
Yeah, so it wasn't an easy time. It was not an easy time, and still is not. We got some very, very major issues on the front burner in this country, but as we started our conversation, the PPP seems more interested in photo op. So the chief of mission there, just laying out some briefly the context in which this election was occurring. And let me go right to another clip. If you guys don't want to make an intervention just yet, might set a better pitch for us to begin our discussion. Take a look.
GECOM managed the operational aspects of the elections efficiently. At the same time, its structure and decision-making remained exposed to its political divisions. Publicly aired disagreements among commissioners also eroded trust in the institution, particularly among opposition parties. GECOM's public communication was also uneven, with insufficient direct engagement with citizens and the media, leaving the space for misinformation. Concerns about the accuracy of the voter list persisted throughout the process. The list contained over 750,000 registered voters, including citizens living abroad and Commonwealth citizens residing in Guyana. In the absence of reliable, up-to-date population data, opposition parties questioned whether the list was inflated, fueling a narrative of possible manipulation. The campaign was overall peaceful, but the tone became increasingly confrontational closer to election day, particularly among PPPC, WIN and APNU representatives.
Yeah, that's it. That's the chief of mission there, the chief observer, wading through some of the incidents starting at GCOM. So we have this turbulent environment that we were operating in post-election. We're still in a very tense environment, lots of stuff happening on the national stage. But GCOM, 5 years later, GCOM, Ganesh, Twitter.
Well, Sherrod, unless we are prepared to, and when I say we, I use it loosely here because I know the APNU is prepared. Unless we are prepared to address the voters list, we will find ourselves in these very problems come again. So we have to take a conscious decision as a nation to address our voters list. We cannot, in our right senses, have a voting list of 750,000, and that will only continue to grow, knowing full well that our population is around the same number. So we have to be sensible if we want the people to trust us, if we want the people to trust the political system in Guyana, if we want them to trust the political architecture and to show that we genuinely mean business in terms of doing what is right for Guyana and to respect the will of the people where there is one person to one vote, then we have to begin with addressing the problem, which is the voters list. The APNU, in all fairness, began that process of having house-to-house registration, and it was stopped by a court action filed by people from the People's Progressive Party. We had 5 years after that, and still they did not move in the direction of making the necessary amendments in the National Assembly to facilitate a house-to-house registration. Here we are again, and we still have a bloated list, a list that has several dead people on it, a list that has several people who have migrated with no intentions of returning to Guyana. And another issue that is birthed out of all of this, that where people find themselves on the list because they are dubbed as Commonwealth citizens residing in Guyana for the period of the 1 year. There is still some degree of interpretation that is necessary there, because what it says is that you have to be 1 year and more domiciled in Guyana, and that was when the law was crafted. But with the advent of oil, with the expanded economy, with the massive projects that we see going on, you have several people who are in this country for a longer period than 1 year, but not necessarily for the purpose of wanting to live in Guyana. They are here primarily because they want to work. They're working with these various companies, and it happens to be that it requires them to be more than a year, and that is how they have been facilitated by the People's Progressive Party to be on the list of electors to participate in our electoral process. That cannot be right. And that is why we have to decide, and I shouldn't say we, because the APNU has really cemented its position on this matter. The People's Progressive Party has to decide whether they want to be a trustworthy force and a genuine force in this country for electoral reform to ensure that we have a clean voters list. And they talked about it not being bloated and all of that. And we have enough information to solidify that claim, because we know that several names were sent to the chief immigration officer where he verified that the people's names who were ticked off on the official list of electors, they voted and they were not present to cast that vote. That ought to be a major concern. This gentleman who spoke there in the clip, the EU Chief of Mission, these are distinguished gentlemen in their own right, coming from respective countries, years of experience, and they are bringing information to Guyana. They are bringing their findings to Guyana. They are making recommendations, and the least we can do as genuine people for our people is to honor what is required, and that is to move in the direction of making the transformation so that we can have a better Guyana.
Rita?
Yeah, sure. You know, very strong language. I must say, listening to those two clips that you just played there, very strong language being used there by the head of mission. And the first clip speaker, he spoke acknowledging the polarization in Guyana. You know, when we go out and we speak about these things, the PPP and their representatives like to push it aside as though we're talking nonsense. But here we have the EU chief of mission saying that this is what it is. And one of the things that I believe that needs to be highlighted when you go through this report, and that's why I said at the beginning, it's such a comprehensive report. When you go through it, you will understand why we as the APNU kept saying all the time that election is not just one day. It is an entire process that comes into play. Everything that leads up to that day is more important than that actual day, if I dare say. All the influence, misuse of state resources, all of those things play a critical role in what happens on the actual E-Day. And when you read this report, it gives you a clear understanding as to why these things are so. Yes, you went on, and yes, we didn't have a lot of noise and a peaceful process on E-Day, but what are the things that happened leading up to E-Day? What were those things that led up to it? And that is what was pointed out so strongly and significantly in this report. And we cannot play a blind eye as we move forward. You know, Sharon, one of the things I can say right now, the only grouping that I would see that would want to not agree with this report would be the PPP. Any other concerned group in this country would have to think twice before they make such comments. And I want to add at this point in time that even after the election, we saw local observation groups that went out there, rushed out very hastily, I would say, to give comments and put up press statements to validate this and validate the process and all of that. But it would be interesting for me to have comments from them now after the presentation of this report to hear what are they going to say now. They rushed out. They just try to follow a specific line, and now they are being called out indirectly by this report that is saying that is not so. These are the experts.
As a matter of fact, I think we've been doing the wrong thing for so long that it passes as the right thing now. That is one of the challenges we have.
People are becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Correct. Yeah. But here is a team of experts, all of them, social media and voting and elections and all of that, and studying this thing the way it ought to be studied. And so many things jumping out of them. I think we saw a press conference with the chairman of GCOM once during this electoral period. And since election, I've now seen her for the first time receiving this very report from this team. So we seem to have an absent election, an absent GCOM chairman. That's number one. Number two, GCOM seemed to be an autopilot. I don't think it's really an autopilot. I think somebody's running it in lieu of the chairman being absent. But number two, imagine we've had, and Ganesh said this, or was it you, Jurita, this comprehensive report in such short order, and GCOM is trying to stymie producing its own report, critiquing its own system by saying they're waiting for the new opposition leader to be sworn in for him to pick his commissioners, right? So if that never happens in the next 5 years, GCOM stays the same because absolutely nothing will be done. You understand where we are in this process.
But Sherrod, we have to see. Yes.
Let me allow Juretta before, because I was going to
Okay.
comment on that same GCOM.
I want to comment on that exact thing what Sherry just said, because one of the things we have to agree on as a people is when we're talking about electoral reform. And this report presents so much information that can be utilized as we go forward. But when it comes to the restructuring of GCOM and all of those things, I have to say I find it extremely strange that GCOM is speaking about the opposition leader selecting new commissioners and not the opposition leader being part of the process to select a new chair of GCOM. And I think that is it goes hand in hand. So I don't understand how it's going to be looked at in such a fragmented approach, if I dare say. And I want to just point out at this time that I believe it was Ganesh, I believe it was you yourself that took to your social media page and said something very similar, not the same thing.
Yes, what I said is that what Claudette should also align herself with is that the chair of GCOM is also a nominee from the opposition. The opposition submits 6 names from which the president has to select one. So if she's making that argument for the 3 nominee from the opposition, then she has to make the same argument for herself. But I say it's a stupid position, Sherrod, because we had a change of government in 2015. And therefore, if we want to accept what is being said now, in 2015 we should have had a similar view, where the new government in 2015, named their commissioners, the opposition PPP named their commissioners, and they move along the process. But the law was never intended to have this kind of behavior. The law was crafted knowing full well that these commissioners are put there to be bipartisan. They are put there to be neutral. They're put there to act in the best interest of a country and not for political parties. And that is why when they're appointed, they're not expected to be disappointed by anybody who made the recommendation for their appointment. And that is why this report could have cited mistrust or lack of trust in GCOM because of what is the claim now of polarization by way of commissioners holding different positions and ventilating it in the public space. All of this was facilitated by Claudette Singh. If Claudette had played her role in a more respectable way, and she could have lined her ducks in such a way where she treated them with respect, where she gives them the respect that they deserve when they're at the horseshoe table, and they dialogue, they try to come to a compromise, they try to fix the issue as opposed to taking political positions and siding with one side against the other, then no commissioner would have had any reason to come in the public space to ventilate. Claudette did not give them the space. Claudette instead acted as a PPP nominee, acted as a PPP appointed commissioner, acted as a PPP chair, and that is what the repercussion was. That is what the consequences were because of her action. Claudette has failed this nation. And it is sad that in her golden age days, she seemed to be acting in this kind of a manner. One would have thought that this respectable woman who sat on the bench at that time and had the word respected woman before her would have moved in the direction of trying to keep that kind of status. But here is it that she is damaging herself. She's damaging her own goodwill that she had in her early days. And for what reason, I am yet to know. We deserve a commission that is strong. We deserve a commission that is independent. We deserve a commission that is removed from political influence. And we deserve a commission that is so independent that their actions must be seen above board. And we don't have that. And that is why this report could have cited that GCOM, I think the exact words was, politicized GCOM. GCOM's structure and decision making remained heavily influenced by political divisions, eroding trust in the institution. Fixing that is very simple, you know. All you got to do, give the people and the authority, and the chairperson must be bold enough, courageous enough, and strong enough to stand up for his or her own belief and stop following political directions.
Yeah, yeah. Let us take, thank you for that, Ganesh and Jurita. Let us take some more of what the Observer Mission said about election 2025.
Part of this rhetoric related to the reported use of US sanctions against the Win presidential candidate. Those includes restrictions on travel and banking services, as well as the closure of accounts of Win members. Still, most contestants were able to campaign freely. At the same time, we received reports of opposition parties being denied access to some public venues and facing obstacles in certain indigenous villages. There were also some accounts of pressure on civil servants and part-time government employees, including transfers or demotions linked to political preference. There was not always a level playing field in the campaign, and it was also affected by advantages of incumbency. We noted that government inaugurated a large number of public projects during the campaign, while state media and government-run social media channels were also used to amplify campaign messages. This again blurred the line between state and the party. Campaign finance rules remain underregulated and outdated. While the law sets expenditure ceilings and requires the reporting of expenses, limits are no longer realistic. Enforcement is weak, and permissible categories of spending are narrow. There are no provisions for online campaigning, third-party spending, or sources of donations, including foreign funding. In view of those gaps, GCOM also lacks the capacity to oversee compliance effectively. The media environment was vibrant but highly polarized. State-run and many private outlets strongly favored the ruling PPC party, limiting voters' access to balanced information. Independent media, so important and vital for democratic society, offered more pluralistic coverage, but overall reporting was shaped by partisanship and tensions between media and political actors. There are no rules for equitable access or balanced campaign coverage. The online information space was vigorous but often antagonistic, marked by manipulative content and driven by a small number of influencers and digital media closely aligned with the main political forces. Legal gaps enabled the misuse of voters' personal data for political purposes. But positively, some digital media and personal pages provided non-partisan information, helping voters make a more informed choice.
That is a lot there. That is so much. In any order, Juja, Ganesh, so
Sure.
rich.
That was, I don't know if Jureta wants to go, but
Go, Ganesh.
that was damning.
Yes.
That particular clip was damning. And they captured several issues there in
Yeah.
that small space of time. And people must not allow that to escape them.
That's
The
the PDP
first
they're
one-
talking about. That's
Yes.
this transformational government that says the elections were free and fair and all of that. But this is the European Union Observer Mission. Speaking
Yes,
now.
when you look at perhaps the first one I heard, the one that resonated there is the state media and how the media houses that are supposed to be private operated in these elections.
But it has become acceptable now. This is what we were talking
And
about. It's become acceptable.
that is so deeply troubling. It is deeply troubling when the media becomes a mouthpiece for a political party.
Yeah.
When the media really and truly decides to serve not the state, but that of a political party. And we will find ourselves in grave difficulty if that doesn't change. And the guy
Ganesh, as you're on that point, I want you to bear in mind also, we saw a comment just recently where somebody says the only time the opposition gets into the state media is if it's negative coverage.
Yeah.
Yes, and not only negative coverage, but also the only time they get into to if the government wants to cover their tracks, they will put them at 11, 12 o'clock in the night.
Mhm.
They will show something that's 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And those are not hours when people are up really looking at the media. But outside of that, Sherrod, it is becoming very troubling. It's undermining democratic pluralism, and it will cause us to have significant problems if the media cannot get its act together. The Guyana National Broadcasting Authority is a waste of time. The people that they have serving.
Really?
Because if the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority really is to exercise their functions, then we would have seen equitable distribution or equal distribution of airtime across the media houses. Media houses are not supposed to be taking sides, and especially NCN, and I think the other one was the Voice of Guyana. They were basically focusing on promoting the party when they are getting money from the state to operate. And there has to be that differentiation between a political party and government. And I roll now to the other issue, which was the use of state resources.
Yeah.
You saw them, you heard the gentleman speaking about cutting ribbons at several of these projects and so on. What the PPP did was to use state funds to travel across this country to open several projects and at the same time facilitate their campaigning as a political party. There has to be clear differentiation between the functions of a government and the functions of a political party. If we don't iron out that and we don't differentiate it in clear legislation, we will find ourselves in great problems going down the line. This is not 5 years back, 10 years back, 20 years back. We are treading in different waters now. We are swimming in the bigger pool of things. We're up there with the big boys, and we have to move our agenda similarly. We can't continue to operate in the manner of how we were operating 5, 10, 15 years back. We have to be more transformational. We have to get with the times and adapt. The other issue I think they raised there was the dissemination of identical content when they use, like, for example, the Guyana Learning Channel. The Guyana Learning Channel is a station that is intended to teach our youngsters math, English, science, social studies, how to be better individuals, and so on. And during the election time, you saw PPP rally going on the Guyana Learning Channel. You saw Jack Dio raising up his red frack and cussing out everybody. Those are not things that are supposed to be aired on programs like those. When we look at campaign finances, that was another issue that was highlighted. And the campaign finances mirror with the abuse of state resources, which contributed to the PPP utilizing state resources to get what they had to do to campaign. And that was a big disparity because no other political party had that at their disposal. I am not advancing that political parties should have it at their disposal. Political parties should have the resources that they raise, including the PPP. They should raise their own funds and don't use state resources. Incumbency will give them or any party a slight advantage because, yes, the ministers still function. Yes, the president still functions. He has to utilize the state vehicle. That's understood. But what cannot be understood is when you're going to take a helicopter and fly to go to campaign, or when you're going to abuse the state resources and go to campaign, or when you're going to charter a plane to go into the hinterland region with several media reporters to campaign under
Yeah.
state resources.
Yeah.
That is abusing. That's abusing state resources. So we are advancing on our side, as we have said before, that there ought to be campaign financing laws in this country. Again, Sherrod, we are swimming in deeper waters. We are
Correct.
up there
Correct.
with bigger boys, and
Correct.
we have to transform our country to the rate at which we are moving and where we are being recognized to a higher level. And the optic politics that the People's Progressive Party is playing, the optic politics that Irfan Ali is trying to demonstrate, is not the permanent fix to the problems that we have. It may be fitting at the moment when you see you turning 3 pots of cook up, or when you hoist a baby and you put a little smack on the cheek, but fixing the problem that this country has require more than just that.
Yep, and you know what? The optic politics is wrong because it is this observer mission that says basically they had no right opening all of those major projects so close to an election. All of that is part of it. So when we talk about free and fair election, are we really ready for this kind of discussion that the European Union observer mission wants to have in this country? Jurita, are we really ready?
Before Jureta comment, forgive me, Jureta. Another issue was the same data protection law.
Correct.
Earlier.
Correct.
But the people of this country must understand what this government did in 2025 was an infringement on our privacy. It was an infringement on our personal data. It was an abuse by them utilizing government information, transfer it from the government entity and place it into a political party's hand.
Yeah.
That is wrong. And that
Correct.
has serious implications.
Correct. And
people must understand that.
It can get worse because Jurita and Ganesh, there's more of it coming because remember, they're now registering for more cash grants. They're now registering for the new ID card. They're now registering for bank accounts and all of that. So it is not without purpose that the legislation is being held in abeyance from actual activation.
Exactly.
It is part of this mechanism, and mind you, they have gone to tender for I think $150-200 million in spy equipment, face recognition software, and all of that. And all of this is part of this conversation we must have in terms of how this information is being stored, who is storing it, who is keeping it, because they want that competitive edge for their electoral advancement. Has nothing to do with the people of this country.
Private citizens' data should never be weaponized for political gains. I will shut up now,
Beautifully said. Twitter.
All right, so I just want to touch on a few things, and Ganesh went into depth with a lot of the comments that was made there by the head of mission. I want to say that Ganesh, you did say that the PPP during the campaign, when they went out to do a lot of the commissioning of projects and so forth, they used the opportunity to also go out and campaign. I want to say that that they were campaigning. Everything that they did was campaigning. Just to go and hold a ceremony to commission a project during the campaign season was campaigning. And they were not discreet. There was no attempt to be discreet in the manner in which they operated. You see, PP has been in power for so long that they are bold in their nonsense. They go out there and they don't try to shy away from what they're doing. They do it boldly because they believe that nobody can hold them accountable for what they're doing. I will remember during the campaign when state resources were being utilized, the PPP ministers went out there fully decked in their campaign attire, PPP t-shirts and caps and so forth, fully decked, utilizing state resources to go out there and to do these things. So at no point in time they tried to be discreet in the way in which they were doing it. And I want to tie it into what is going on even now. And going back to where we started this conversation, look at what is happening in Tiger Bay. If you are to go in depth when it comes to misuse of state resources and all of those things, and look at what they're doing right about now as they launch their soft campaigns here and there, leading up to the expected upcoming local government election, you would see them doing the exact things right now. And we've got to call them out for these things. The PPP have absolutely no care as to who say what. And this is the conversation we're to have right now, because as opposition members of parliament, one of the things we should note right now is that we definitely will have to lean on international support to push for these recommendations to be implemented as we move forward. They are so strong. We know the PPP is going to push back heavily. When it comes to data, we are in 2025. We're yet to see one page of the census.
Yeah.
We have asked for the census. The PPP has spoken about it to the press, and they're finalizing this, they're finalizing that. No part of the census has been made public. That is data that they are utilizing for their own personal use.
Yeah.
They are not bringing it to the public because it's going to have a serious clash with the voters list that they are using also.
Rita, I want to remind the members of the public, it was last year, December, Ganesh, we were promised a preliminary statement on the census.
Correct.
Last year, December.
But that was the second promise. The second time we were promised it before.
Let me say this. I don't know if Sharon and Juretta experienced this, but I was at home 2 days ago, and two young ladies came to my gate, and they said to me that they're from the Bureau of Statistics and that they're conducting a survey. This is 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And the survey that they need information in terms of how many people are living in the house and the age range of the people, how many are adults and how many are children. I then said to them, but this information was taken a couple of months ago, which was for the census, right? I said a couple of years ago because we're in 2025. But I said to them a couple of months ago, so why are you here again for it? They said, Mr. Maipal, they recognized me, Mr. Maipal, we're doing our job. And this is information that we are asked to go around to get. I then said to them that I respect what you said to me. I know that you have to collect the information, and I can tell you that the very information you're asking me for, the census has it, and you can get it from the census. I say that to say to people that here is the Bureau moving around the country again, and they're going to visit you guys if they have not as yet, to acquire information that they already are supposed to have. So I found that very strange. I would like to know, why are they conducting a second survey like this, which is similar to that of what they conducted for the census, and how much money is associated with the execution of this second going around? Several people are being employed to do it. I mean, we can't take advantage of the people who are walking the ground to get the information because they are on the lower tier of things and they don't know what is happening. But the bigger boys that are sitting at the top there, utilizing your money, the people's money, the taxpayers' money, to do these kinds of exercises without producing results after years, has to be troubling.
Correct.
And I want to say that when person share, when you have me and Ganesh, I'm so sorry, but we just run your time out. But I want to say at this point in time, when persons are coming around, be very skeptical also. Make sure that they show identification. They can clearly identify which organization they're representing and all of those things before you go there, a citizen, and divulge information or invite them into your homes. I just want to just put out that bit of a caution to persons also.
What people should do, Sharon, is when they come, nicely say to them, the information you're seeking, I already provided it to your bureau, and it's in the census. The census
Yeah.
has the data.
Yeah.
Go there and get it. They have my lot number. They have how many people live here. They know the age range of the people. They know the ethnicity of the people. They know everything they need to know for the census. Get it from that census data.
Correct.
And that
I
census
thought,
data ought to come public.
yeah, I saw somewhere this is they're doing an economic survey or something of the sort, but there is those concerns. How are the two sets of information going to interact with each other? Is it the same people who are supposed to be completing the $2 billion census of 2022 who are working on this new project? When are we going to get this information from the second census survey, whatever it is, when we can't even get information from the first one?
That's why we as the people, Sherrod, we got to stand up. It's time we as a people sound our voices and don't respond to them. Because if you can't give us the census data, what you coming to me for more information for?
Correct.
Give us the
Correct.
census data.
Correct.
You want us to trust the system, but you're not demonstrating that we can trust you. You can't want us to trust what we have, and you're not giving us the opportunity to trust you. I would have willingly provided the information had the census been out, had there been some degree of trust. But we as a people, we got to take a stand at some point.
And Ganesh, you said it right, because this entire EU elections report is telling us we can't trust this government. This entire report, that is what it is saying. They're untrustworthy.
That is correct. I know, Ganesh and Sherrod, one of the things we must note when it comes to dates, and data is it's a huge conversation, so we definitely could only touch the surface of it tonight. But one of the things that we must note is that while the census was ongoing, there was a lot of different surveys that were put on pause, like the labor force survey. We have not seen a labor force report in about 4 years. 4 years, something that should be done. I think it was being done quarterly. Yes. We did not see it in 4 years because the Minister of Finance said it was put on pause to accommodate the work for the census. So there's so many things that have been lacking and information that has not come to the public as yet. And I want to say that when the PPP went on, they love to go forward and speak about democracy. And if there's one thing that this report is saying, that it's saying that the PPP is not a democratic party. They do not practice democratic norms at any level of governance, and when it comes to an electoral system, they are far from democratic in how they operate as a political party, and they do not blur the lines between the government and their party. They have completely erased that line. They operate as if it is one and the same. They make sure that as ministers in government, they treat the government coffers as though they're spending from their own personal bank account, as though there's no check and balance to that system. These are things that we need to identify. I know as days go on, we'll have more conversation as to the content of this report, but it is so comprehensive. I just invite everyone that has the time and the interest to go look at it.
Let us say this is the first, the first foray into this report from the EU. I know other missions also going to put up their reports too. Who did this work? The international persons. We had the Commonwealth, like we had the EU, we had the Carter Center as well, and I think we may have had one or two others. These are the international election observation missions. So we look forward to those. As we wrap up, is there one thing that's really stood out to you from this report? Is there one thing? For me, I think there was some categorization of the private sector as a monitoring body, an observer body, and the EU was very adamant. It's a strange phenomenon. They said that the private sector exists to make money. Business is their thing. So it might be a little thingish that they're involved in observing too, and seem very, as you said, hurried to say the thing was all nice and good. And the Private Sector Commission, for instance, along with the GCCI, their press conference on election 2025 was about 13 minutes. That being said, what stood out to you?
What stood out for me was when it was that they do not call elections free, and that Guyana is far from achieving that. And Guyana, I think the words were that there is still homework to be done before Guyana reaches that standard.
Yeah, clearly.
That really stood out for me in terms of the interaction and so on. And the fact that a mission like the European Union that was just here for a couple of months to observe our elections could have drawn the conclusion that Guyana, that there is still homework to be done before Guyana reaches to that standard, that stood out for me. And that validates for me the APNU's position that there is need for us to have a clean voters list if we intend to have credible elections in this country. And I cannot go without saying that we maintain our call for biometrics.
Correct.
Biometrics is a safeguard. Biometrics is a guarantee. And biometrics is an action that ensures one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. Same thing, Juretta. But I want to ensure that we understand that in order for us to be credible with elections, we require a credible process. And it begins with a credible voters list. With a credible voters list, we are likely to have credible elections, and that will equal to credible results and a credible government.
All right. Julia?
You know, I want to say that what stood out to me most was their second priority recommendation, and I just want to read it for the viewers tonight. It says that update the voter list in light of most recent available population data that will be coming from the census also, and data from all relevant state institutions, ensuring linkage to ongoing digitalization solutions, you know. And when it was not by accident that they placed their ensuring linkage to ongoing digitalization solutions, because here we have the PPP standing out there saying that they're dealing with an EID and they're going to be digitizing so many things, but the same PPP is saying that, oh, we don't we can't do any digitalization in terms of biometrics when it comes to our electoral system. So I found it very instructive. No, I know these observer missions, their job is not to say this is what you must do. So at no point in time are we going to expect to see, oh, we should be looking at biometrics as a solution, but they identify the issues, they make recommendation as to what should have been done. But as a political party, when they say ensuring linkage to ongoing digitalization solutions, it means very strongly that we should be heading in the direction of biometrics. And as of November 2025, we have all the time needed as a country. We have the resources available as a country for us to start heading in that direction.
Okay.
If all goes as planned, we will also have 2 local government elections upcoming before the next general and regional elections, in which we can even test those systems in between, so as to make sure that come 2030 we have biometrics up and running to its best capacity. So I believe that was a very instructive priority recommendation, and again I thank the EU tremendously for this comprehensive report.
All right. So all the folks who joined us for this program, a little deviation from our usual evening programs with what's happened during the day and the other news and so on. Thank you guys so much. We're going to leave it there. It's a hard finish. That's going to do it for us at this end. That's our time and that's our broadcast. MP Ganesh Mahi Paul, MP Director of Finance. Thank you guys as well for dropping by and bringing some context to the EU
Thank you for having me.
report of election 2025 that happened here in Guyana. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
so
Thank you
much.
for having me.